After 14 years, I can scarcely see a system that is as broken, one in such desperate need of reform, and that is why we are absolutely determined to fix it, and we have started work already. It is a priority for this department to fix our SEN system, but we know we cannot do it alone. We have to work with the sector, we have to work with valued partners, we have to make sure our approach is fully planned and delivered together with parents, with schools, with councils, with expert staff, who we know are already going above and beyond for our children, but we can do so much better. Many members, as I mentioned, have raised concerns about the national funding formula, and so we acted as quickly as we could to respond to some of the immediate cost pressures in the SEN system. We know it's causing incredible financial difficulties in some local authorities. So before the parliamentary recess, we announced a new core schools budget grant to provide special and alternative provision schools with over £140 million of extra funding in this financial year, to help with the extra costs of the teacher pay award and the outcome for the increased negotiations for support staff as well. And this is in addition to the high needs funding allocation for children and young people with complex special needs and disabilities. However, despite these record levels of investment, I know families are still fighting the system because it is not delivering. The Department for Education budget for 25-26 hasn't yet been decided, and how much high needs funding is distributed to local authorities, schools and colleges next year will depend on the next stage of the government spending review. It is due to be announced in October. It does mean that the high needs allocations have not been published in the normal timescale, but we are working at pace to announce next year's funding allocations, and we are acutely aware of the pressures that local authorities are facing, not only because they are supporting these increasing needs of young people and children, but also the financial pressures that the government as a whole is facing because of the economic climate that we have inherited. So it's not going to be easy or quick to solve these problems, but we really want to work on long-term solutions, and we want to work together on these important issues. So, and that includes looking at the national funding formula. We will take time to consider whether to make changes to the formula, and of course we'll consider the impact on any local authorities and as she mentioned, on particular areas that have made representations in relation to it. On inspection, I really am short of time. On inspection, we welcome the publication of the Big Listen response this week. We want to work with Ofsted to consider how outcomes for children with SEND can better demonstrate inclusion, and we want every school to be driving for their school to be as inclusive as it can be, and that mainstream provision is provided for as many children as possible. In the interest of fairness, I will give way just one time.
Thank you, Minister, for briefly giving way, and I thank her for her comments on reviewing the funding formula. Can I just take this opportunity to really urge her to finally address the per-pupil funding deficit of pupils in Cornwall who receive thousands and thousands of pounds per pupil less than pupils in the rest of the country. And I hope she agrees with me that pupils in Cornwall and my constituency of North Cornwall, particularly those with special educational needs, aren't less valuable than children in other parts of the country.
Yeah, I will say again and again that we are absolutely committed to ensuring that every child's entitlement to have the best education possible in their local area and where they need it can be delivered under our system. But nothing says more about the state of our nation than the well-being of our children. And one of the great casualties of the last 14 years has been our children's well-being, their development and their opportunities. Under the last governments, we saw relative child poverty soar, rates of children presenting with mental health conditions skyrocketing, more and more children languishing on waiting lists. And it now falls to the Labour government to rebuild opportunities for our children. And that's why we do have bold ambitions. We are determined to deliver. And I want to thank honourable members for bringing this matter forward today, for all of you who have contributed to today's debate. But most of all, I want to acknowledge the hard work being done by so many working in education, in health and care, who support our children and young people with special educational needs. We know it's challenging, but we thank them for their commitment